show up for work with the best of intentions, but before long, the day gets the better of you as crisis after crisis shows up on your doorstep. You spend all day fighting fires, accomplishing tons, and yet somehow you still leave work feeling like a failure. What if there was a way to bound the problem, to set the scale in your favor? Today, we're going to explore how you can define victory, empower yourself, and the systems that'll get you there.
Systems. My whole life is built around systems, and yet the places where I struggle the most also are around my systems. What do you think of when you think of setting up systems?
It really comes back to what are the frameworks that you can put in to help you weather the storm, the posts that are going to help hold everything up. This episode was inspired. One, I thought that we needed to build off of some of the things we talked about last week. And a good friend of mine, professionally, a gentleman by the name of Tom Van Dam, if you're not following him, give him a shout on LinkedIn. He posted something the other day that he was talking to one of his coaching clients. He said, after a loss, the coach told him, we just didn't have it today. But it wasn't about that day. It was about missed standards, the conversations they avoided, the accountability they let slide. Game day didn't create the problem. It revealed the drift. And that the best teams don't leave this to chance. They build systems and they live by them. Because culture isn't what you say, it's what your systems reinforce. And that just really reminded me of those moments when I felt like I was in crisis mode, and the difference between how I weathered that storm successfully or when I didn't feel like I weathered it successfully was the systems I had in place so that I had objective measures of performance to fall back on. Things that really helped me like ground myself. And so I think that that's critically important as we look at how do you handle stress? How do you handle success? How do you define victory? It was one of the notes I got this week from somebody was, hey, how do you define victory? What do you do? And I was thinking of the systems I created, then Tom's post, and here we are.
Thank you, Tom Van Dam. I really appreciate your notion of systems. It's how we prepare regular, consistent, predictable, and scalable and sustainable activities around known influences. We know that every day we're going to have a certain number of emails, we're going to have a certain number of meetings, and those numbers might fluctuate. But if we have a system in place to handle them, I'm going to have an hour in the morning to answer my emails. If we have a system like that, it allows us to have fewer variables of unknown. We are here on imPERFECT, Better After Broken, the show where we celebrate the cracks, the scars, and the stories that make us stronger. I'm Susan Hendrich.
And I'm Jeff Servello. Thanks for joining us here on Sandcastle Radio, America's hottest online variety and music station. We're going to get this right at some point.
Episode
We're going
15.
to get through it.
You set the bar. We have a system.
We're working on our system.
We're so close.
We are. But that's okay. It just goes to show if things get off track, you just get back on track. You just pick it up. We're not going to stop the recording. We're not going to cancel the show. We're just going to pivot and we're going to get back on track.
Thank you. That grace you just gave me feels lovely. Instead of beating myself up and feeling silly for missing the cue, I really appreciate we are one iteration after the next. We're getting our system figured out. I was a trained systems family therapist. The reason I was attracted to working in systems therapy is one sentence that a patient said to me once. She rolled up from the curb, opened the door, and her child got out and was coming in to do therapy with me. And she said, call me when he's fixed and not until then. And she was kind of playful, but I also recognize that when there's an identified person or an identified need, often we focus all of our energy on the fix for that one person or that one element of a system, but rarely is an issue or a need or someone suffering in isolation. Thinking about how systems interact and all the people or elements within really started to intrigue me. So this episode might be one of my favorite topics. What kind of systems do you have, Jeff?
I have a couple basic systems. Generally, I like to structure my week in repeatable patterns. So my Mondays look the same, Tuesdays look the same, Wednesdays look the same. I started to do time blocking. I have blocked out the things that are really important to me, go on my calendar first, so that I am able to fill my cup before I fill other people's cups. I use what I refer to as I am SMART goals. So your basic SMART goal, but instead of having a specific point of victory, I give myself a window of victory. If you were to think about a green in golf, right? The island green at TPC Sawgrass, which is the green, a little bit of rough about yay big, and then water. An I am SMART goal would essentially be the ideal shot would be a hole in one. An acceptable shot would be anything that is not in the water, so anything on the green. And then the median shot would be if I really say to myself, I want to be within 10 feet of the cup, is like, that's really good. Ideal in the pin, 10 feet of the cup is the middle ground, and acceptable is, hey, I'm on the putting surface and I can try to recover. And so I try to set those systems for myself with each of my goals. So for my workouts, I build in, I have an I am SMART framework for my workouts. I have an I am SMART framework for my hobbies, for my times with my kids, my wife. And so I use that to kind of structure myself so I can say, hey, if I want to show up as the husband I want to be, these are the things that I'm doing to contribute to that. If I want to show up as the father that I want to be, these are the things that I need to do to make that happen. If I want to invest in my well-being in a way that helps me to where I can be around for years and years and years, or at least increase the likelihood of that, these are the things I need to do. So those are my main systems and frameworks. How about you?
I'm intrigued by your I am SMART systems, where you create gradations of what success looks like. The fact that you are intentional at all about the goals that you set is already ahead of the game. It's a form of making an investment before you just kind of show up and see what the day brings, but allowing yourself an ideal, an acceptable, and then a median or a minimum viable product really is cool, because depending on the weather, depending on your energy or the people you're playing with, or if somebody's trying to play through and you get, knocked off center, that gives you a period of grace. So within a system, having windows of tolerance makes it more sustainable. My systems, I have one when it comes to being a leader, investing each day in making sure that I see the people I'm responsible for. That doesn't mean I actually interact with everybody every day. It just means I am investing a certain amount of time in paying attention to the needs, the wants, the goals, the challenges that each person I'm responsible for is facing. And by having that rhythm of investment, it helps keep me informed about what they care about. And it also helps keep me accountable for investing in my teammates. So I kind of make that merry-go-round approach each day, thinking about the people in my immediate care.
How did that come to be?
In an embarrassing way. I had a manager once. I'm so grateful for him. At the time, I didn't appreciate his leadership. There were 8 of us in a similar role, and most other folks on the team were struggling in some way. About 6 of the other folks on the team were struggling, and then there was a high performer and myself somewhere in that mix. And the people who were struggling, our manager spent the majority of his time supporting these folks who were struggling. Some were kind of plateaued and not really dialed in. Some were involved in kind of office dramas and things like that. And other folks just genuinely were struggling to learn what they needed to do for their role. And I watched day after day where he would spend time trying to help folks, and then he'd walk out of the room and they would either talk poorly about him or they would disregard the things he was doing. I was frustrated with the 2 teammates who were not valuing the investment, and it felt it felt disingenuous, what the energy, the kind of negative energy that they had. But I was also frustrated with my manager because this other colleague of mine and myself, and we're really working hard. We're doing, going above and beyond, and we're bringing in these great results, and we're not really hearing anything. And I realized in that role how much I thrive on feedback, that I'm doing a good job. I later learned that high performers need 6 times the amount of feedback that core performers need. And I'm not saying I was necessarily the high performer in that space, but I was certainly doing well. Not getting any feedback, it was kind of a growing sense of frustration. The learning lesson for me about systems was that I never told him that I was needing more feedback. I never expressed to him that it was frustrating. My colleague and I, we never said anything. We just kind of went about our business. And shame on me, I didn't need a lot of time and attention, but I needed to know that I was doing well. One day when I had really reached a frustration point, I said, it really is a bummer. We so-and-so and I are really working hard, and we just never hear that we're doing anything right. And he said, I don't need to tell you guys you're doing great, because you already are and you know it. And he said, why didn't you tell me that you needed to hear this? And that was the moment of shame on me. And I also made a commitment to myself that I didn't want any high performers to feel neglected. I didn't want core performers to feel disproportionately micromanaged or over attended to. So I made a promise to myself that I was going to pay attention to the individual needs of each person I'm responsible for moving forward. And I would ask, what do you need, and what kind of recognition and reward do you appreciate? That's where that system came from.
I love that, and I appreciate that. I always do enjoy when we're talking and you always ask, how can I show up for you? What do you need? How can I support you? And a lot of times the answer is by exactly doing what you're doing, or whatever. But it's so great when somebody asks in a genuine way. And so that is super helpful. And as you were talking about that, it reminds me of that Chris Rock skit. Have you seen it, where he's like, you're not supposed to beat your kids, right? Like where like, oh, but I didn't hit my kids. Well, you're not supposed to beat your kids, so we're not going to celebrate that. But at the same time, maybe we do need to celebrate that. If we go through our day playing whack-a-mole, no form, just all function, that's a recipe for disaster, and that we need some sort of framework to guide our efforts.
Most leaders who struggle or fail in adversity don't fail because they lack courage. They fail because they've been relying on intensity and spurts rather than systems. Intensity feels like leadership because you're showing up, it's fast, it's reactive, it's visible, it's pounding fists on the table, but that's not a sustainable way to lead. And it's definitely not reliable under pressure. What actually holds up in complex environments are systems that are designed, practiced, tested, and recalibrated in non-stressful times, not having rigid rules or bureaucracy, but systems that keep us going. How we show up for each other is a form of norms. That's a system where we agree on the way we want to operate as a team in times where things are relatively stable, and how do we want to show up when things go awry.
What a great call out. Level 2 energy from IPEX coaching, about where I can just take charge and I can power through. And we have a coworker who has a little saying where she, I can do all things through spite and caffeine. And you know what? For most leaders, especially senior leaders, you probably could. You probably, or at least that's probably your step that you're getting in trouble, is you have been a doer. But now you've risen to a level in the organization that you can't be a doer for a prolonged period of time. You need to be a facilitator. You need to be an enabler, so that then you can reserve capacity for the things that only you can do. And last week we talked about goals versus outcomes. And I got a lot of emails about this and the differences. And I kind of want to dig into this as the basis for the setting up the systems. How can we set up systems that both enable goals and outcomes? And which should we look at first?
Ooh, You set a goal and it's designed around an outcome, and you move toward that goal in order to cause this outcome, rinse and repeat. So when you get results, it's because your system is designed that way. James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Think wisely about how you set up those systems. So if we're going to put goals against outcomes, having a system to get us there is a surefire way to make sure that everybody is clear on where we're trying to go, is agreed on how we're going to get there, and is prepared for aberrant or outside of the expected norms activities to try to get us back into a system. Good system, it doesn't remove uncertainty, it makes you ready for that uncertainty.
I think about our bodies and our autonomic system. The most important things we do outside of our control. So to our subconscious, our breathing, our yawning, our blinking, our digestion, all those things, for the most part, your body is going to like be on autopilot. I like to look at what are the things that have to happen at some repeatable interval, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. What are those things that have to happen to support whatever outcome that I'm trying to accomplish? What are the base things that have to happen? And then work my way out from there. I start to create the system. So at a minimum today, I need to make sure I do X, Y, and Z. If I do these three things, I've not lost any ground. May not have gained any ground, but I haven't lost any ground. And if I do that every day, okay, I'm treading water. If you fall over in the middle of the ocean and there's no boat around, treading water is not terrible, right? That's probably okay. And so then I start to then layer on top of it. If that's just survival, what does progress look like? And then start to layer the systems on top of that.
How much time do we spend in our lives behaving in ways that reflect systems we don't even realize we've set up? I got this water pick. The first few times I used it, I felt like a 2-year-old trying to hold a crayon. It was going all over the place, and I'm spraying Tom in the mirror and by accident, and I left more water on the sink and the mirror than I did, actually using this water pick. I didn't have a system or a way yet. I didn't have the neural pathways dug on how to hold it, how much pressure to apply. Okay, I'm going to learn this. It's going to take me a couple times, and I'm a mechanically inclined, I have good manual dexterity normally. So why is this so frustrating for me? And I wanted to quit and get rid of it and just say, I'll just stay with my regular flossing. On the third day, I was able to get it a little bit less water on the walls, a little bit. I didn't squirt Tom in the eye, which was a victory at that point. And now I'm at a point where I am not even consciously aware of the fact that I'm doing this in the morning. I'm listening to a podcast while I'm doing my routine, and autopilot system. I don't get a drop of extra water anywhere else, but it takes time to set up a system. But once it becomes part of your routine, it kind of takes over for itself. One less thing to think about, one less cognitive load to have to worry about in the morning. It's just part of my routine.
I love that you've used the word routine. Maybe one of the most important words we're going to use, because what kinds of things become part of our routines? The most important things become part of our routines. I mean, if you go back to the body, right? The breathing, the blinking, the digestion, right? It's the most important. So it becomes part of the routine. But what happens when we get busy? What are the first things to fall out of our schedule? The basic things are the first things professionally to fall out of our schedule, which is why I think our body is so incredible that it's like, you know what? You're a chucklehead. You're going to mess this up. And so if I don't make this to where you can't control it, you're going to not do it when something shinier comes along. So creating a routine that is built around the most important things, and those things becoming sacrosanct and protected, is one of the most critical things that any of us can do when we're designing our systems.
I started work in critical incident stress management. The idea is something terrible happens, and what system do we have in place from a mental health perspective to help people cope with this critical incident? So first responders, police, fire, ambulance, they are using their systems to ensure the safety of the people that they're there to serve. My job is to support the first responders with my own system, the fundamentals being the most important, the basics of sleep, hydration, exercise, nutrition. Those are the things that go out the window when we're under stress. And that is how so many of our great routines that we start during our January New Year's resolutions, the minute something comes that interrupts that flow, those systems go out the windows. It was Valentine's Day, and I got the call, and we had pagers at the time. That's how long ago this was. I got the page, and there was a firefighter who wanted to go and catch a lobster for his girlfriend to cook and serve for Valentine's Day. The night before, he had gone out by himself diving, which anybody who dives knows you don't do that, but he couldn't get anybody to go with him, and he really wanted to catch a lobster. He got his line caught, and he was unable to resurface, and he passed away. His colleagues that he'd been with for many, many years were absolutely devastated, and they just didn't know what to do with themselves, because this is one of the smartest people that they knew. This guy was, invincible. And they're sitting in a circle in this room in the fire station, talking about the first thing that you thought when you heard the news. And each of these went around and said, devastated, angry, upset, like, why? Why him? He has so much promise in life. And we end this session after they're going through talking about mental health stuff. I brought up, how are you going to cope over the next couple of days? And they were all talking about, I'm going to drink a lot of beer. I'm going to smoke, I'm going to do all these things that probably are going to make me feel great in the short run, but are not going to help me in the long run. So I asked about sleep. I asked about hydration. I asked about, how do you handle it when really hard things happen? And every single one of those men talked about how the first thing that goes out the window is their systems, their fundamental basics of taking good care of themselves, just getting a good night's sleep, just making sure that you drink enough water to help you stave off the hangover from the beers. Those fundamental systems being the things that bring us home when we are most removed from a sense of safety.
I learned very similar concept, and it was phrased to me that your systems are driven by your priorities, not your priorities dictated by your systems. Sleep, hydration, eating, knowing those things have to happen, and then having a system that supports it. Knowing that you have to have X, Y, and Z done at work, and then being deliberate about carving the time out to do those things, and then protecting those times. A really great intro into the system is identifying the baseline tasks. What are the fundamentals that have to happen? How do you protect those things? You had talked earlier about agility. What's the acceptable limit that those can move around a little bit? Bounding the problem. How else can we build in agility into this?
In the workplace, you have a crisis or even an unexpected, disappointing thing happen. We often abandon the fundamentals there as well. So as a leader, just bringing your team together when something terrible happens, not necessarily having an agenda other than allowing folks to process what has happened. That kind of a system where your team members know that the boss is going to bring us together, and if nothing else, we're going to have each other to process and work through what's happening. That is a system unto itself. It's a form of safety restoration under difficult circumstances. We think we have to have these really sophisticated, fancy leadership techniques to help people manage through. Most of the time, it's listen, provide a safe space, and just be there as people figure out how to manage.
I also want to invoke Brian here for a minute. Never a bad time for a good pivot. You create systems. They're yours. If they stop working, don't fit the moment, adjust them. Take a look at what your priorities are and adjust your system to enable the accomplishment of your priorities. The other area where I've seen people get into trouble is, I know you've heard this, well, that's how we do things here. Yeah, but is that the right way to do it for where we are now? Well, we work through lunch. So you mean to tell me you're an educated professional with multiple advanced degrees who is lacking in sleep, hasn't given themselves time to hydrate, and you've skipped how many meals, and you're going to tell me you're at your best? Oh, maybe I should change something. Maybe you should.
Use your agency.
Yes. This is about systems that create agency when the rest of the world is spinning topsy-turvy around you. What are the things that you can hold on to and grasp? And I have this. Everything else may be flying around, but I have this right here. Nothing's going to happen to that.
Protecting. I think of systems as a form of boundaries around the chaos of the world, how we protect our time, our space, our people, our goals, our intentions from the drift that can happen when we aren't deliberate. I love your word, deliberate.
Yeah. Our sanity even. Our listener question hints at this, or a listener from Long Island. It said, last week you talked about defining victory. I have no idea what victory looks like other than not going irate on people. How do I win? How do I win when I feel like I'm constantly getting my butt kicked? And I think that agency is a big part of it, in protecting your sanity. Being able to say, I set out to do this and I got that done. Maybe it's only 4 things, but that sense of agency in defining it. I always hated the game whack-a-mole, and that's why I refer to it as whack-a-mole, where it's just randomness. It's just pop, 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 pop. Like, how do you win at whack-a-mole? It's pure, it's luck and random. At least with skee ball, there's a sense, the clock, there's the balls, there's the rings, there's order. And so it's kind of making a finite pattern to an infinite game. How do you win when you feel like you're getting your butt kicked? Bound the problem. Give yourself some agency. One of the things I like to do, and then I set my routine things up. And then every week I would do something for me. Pick something during the week that was going to make me happy. Cat's helping out. I love it. Which cat is that?
It's Amelia, and she's demonstrating how I did not comply with one of my systems, which is to lock these babies in a room when I'm going to meet Jeff online for our show.
That's awesome.
I'm so sorry about that, Jeff.
No, that's okay. We're going to roll with it. This is great, right? So Amelia's helping out, right? So maybe that's one of the things that I do now for me when I work from home. You'll routinely see Millie or Harbor in my office because that makes me happy. Right. So what's something at work that makes you happy? Right. Something for me. Then I think of something for you, one of my individual teammates. You kind of alluded to this before. Checking in with people might be one of them. And then I think of something for us, for the larger collective that they can do. And that was how I locked into defining victory for myself. The rest of the world may be crazy, but I have my routine enabling objectives that support our outcome. Something for me, something for you, something for us helped me to feel like I was making a difference. And that helped me to grasp on to something when everything was spinning around me.
Look at the simplicity and elegance of what you have created for yourself. Very calming in this maelstrom of the world to think about doing something so simple and attaching each day to something for me, something for you, and something for us. It's a rhythm. A system is a form of a rhythm. It's like how the machine hums or runs so that we all can continue functioning together. As Amelia jumped up on the desk just then, I'm listening to you and I'm so excited about what you're going to share. And I see her and I hear, and I know she's about to come up there. And I see this paw tapping on me and I'm like, no, honey. And I'm trying to pretend everything's normal when you can't protect the boundary because the system falls apart, where you kind of just have to surrender into it and try to get back on track. Cool Japanese proverb that I love. If you get on the wrong train, get off at the next available stop. In other words, don't let everything disintegrate around you and then you just give up on your exercise routine, or you give up on the recording because Amelia's jumped up there. As soon as you can get things back on track, do it, but also acknowledge, I'm on the train right now. There's nothing else I can do. I'm going in the wrong direction, but I know what my next right move is, which is to get off the train and get back to my desired destination.
And to our listener, in those moments where you're getting your butt kicked and you just are kind of like braced for shock and you don't know what the next move is, fall back on your routine. Fall back on the routine. Fall back on the tasks that are the minimum required product. The things that have to happen. Maybe you're only treading water. Fine. That's better than drowning. Is it as good as swimming forward? No, but it's better than drowning. Create that agency. Try to focus forward and recognize what you can affect as opposed to being intimidated by all that you can't.
I'm grateful for our Long Island listener who painted that picture, and I laughed out loud as you were reading the question because it's so relatable. We are under a tremendous amount of pressure, and there are so many other systems that other people have constructed around us that we kind of fall into their menu of what the day should look like. So using that agency to identify what systems matter to you and make it known to others. People adjust around that and they know, oh, okay, Jim is not going to be available between 5 and 6. He used his agency to teach others how to treat him. It became a non-issue of just knowing that, hey, after 5 o'clock, it's all over. And by the way, it should be, that we all have those kinds of boundaries. What's happened in our digital world where we have our entirety of our workspace in our pocket is that we don't have any boundaries around it. We don't have a system for when we're going to check work email or when we're going to respond and reply. It's just like this 24-hour free-for-all. If we could create skee-ball lanes for our checking our work and when we're going to end for the day to go to the gym, what a gift, not only to ourselves, but to others to be able to expect, I am not going to get an email from my boss at 6 a.m. or on the weekend, unless it's a true emergency. That creates a sense of safety and agency for others around you.
Think of boundaries not as restrictions, but actually as creating freedom of space for you to operate within. Just thinking about it from a different perspective is really liberating. What are some things people shouldn't do from a systems perspective?
Don't try to change everything overnight. When you're learning algebra, they say isolate the variable and change one thing at a time. Otherwise, you don't know what one of your interventions is making a difference. Choosing one thing at a time to experiment with. Don't try to fix everything at once, because even if it works, you won't know which element of that fix was the thing that made the difference. Be an example of something you would caution against.
I would caution against systems that eliminate your ability to have focused periods of work. I think a lunch hour, a lunch 20 minutes, something. I hate the idea of an open door policy. One of the worst things that ever came out of leadership literature is I have an open door. No, I don't. When my door is shut, it's shut. Because I need moments too. And you should take those moments. If my door is shut and I'm doing stuff here for me, maybe it's for you to enable something else, right? But if I'm an enabler, I need time to enable other people. Leaders need time to think, to process. And when you have an open door, I think that came out of the fallacy of multitasking, to where we think that, oh, I can do 6 things at once. No, you can't. Right. And the average person, when they're interrupted, takes 6 minutes to get back on track. So create periods where you're open. Pretend you're a college professor. I had office hours when I taught at the Naval Academy. When I didn't, outside of office hours, if students came by, I sometimes turned them away. Sometimes I didn't, but sometimes I turned them away because I'm sorry, this is my time to grade your homework, to do the things that I have to do for my responsibilities. And then in these other times is when I'm open to facilitate your success.
For folks who are naturally inclined to be people pleasing, That concept you just described, I would imagine, is, as a recovering people pleaser myself, that is a difficult concept to grab onto because we like to be needed. We like to be available and team player. So when somebody comes by, to shut that door might be awkward at first, or it might feel difficult, like you don't want to let somebody down. But that is an investment in self and in the relationship. The reason for it being an investment in both yourself, creating those boundaries, and teaching others that I'm not always going to be open door, is what I believe to be the number one skill that a leader needs to have to thrive in this current age, economy, digital zeitgeist that we're in. And that is the ability to regulate their own system. And I mean your body system. We are running around chronically activated, chronically in fight or flight or freeze. And so any given moment, another stimulus on top of that chronic activation puts us over the edge where our stress behaviors come out. And if we can't close a door and have a little time to ourselves where we aren't activated, where we are able to regulate the system, calm down, deep breathe, take a moment, drink a glass of water, then we are at the mercy of the random stimuli around us. And the next person that walks in, we get our hackles up. They were just coming in to say hi or ask a simple question, but we are already so potentiated by the frustrations that have built up because we didn't have boundaries earlier or systems to manage our anxiety, our stress, our energy, that everybody loses because we're snapping at others.
I love it. And for all of our people pleasers out there, if you want to be a varsity level people pleaser, compartmentalize time for yourself so that when people need you, you're at your best to take care of them. Because really what's going to happen is if you don't give yourself time, if you don't have a system that supports all the different things that you need to do, if your system does not enable your priorities, your lack of a system will work against your priorities. It's almost like a cancer. It's like when your body starts to fight against itself. You need those moments to do things. The person who's at your door that you think you're not pleasing, what about the person whose thing you're working on that you are trying to please? And that's one of the topics that I talk about with all of my people pleasers when we're coaching is, okay, how can this system of carving out time enable you to then take care of those people better? And when we frame it like that, it's like, oh, wait, I hadn't thought about that. I'm much more pleasant when I'm not interrupted. Oh, you don't say. Tell me more.
Permission to have limits and to create systems that include yourself. Too often, our systems that we either get caught up in or we create are centered around the needs of others. And if we don't include ourselves, the body speaks what the heart cannot bear to say. Your body will break down eventually, or your filters will break down. So empower yourself in advance and you'll be so much better able to take care of others. So I like your varsity concept of, if you really want to be good to people, be good to yourself first.
And for the parents that are listening, folks who are stuck on their phone, bed rotting or the phone rotting, what better thing than a system? Maybe it's the Pomodoro system where I'm going to spend 25 minutes of work and then I'm going to give myself 5 minutes of scrolling. But when you just have just doom scrolling and you don't have structure to be able to weather the storm, to our listener in Long Island, structure. Structure, and then find the thing that fills you up and gives you joy and add a little bit of that to your life. Again, for me, it was something for me. I used to do Ric Flair Wednesday. I would walk around high-fiving people and be like, woo! It was stupid, but people laughed, and I generally came across as pretty taciturn and serious, especially during COVID when I had my mask on and you could only see my angry eyebrows and my RBF, right? And then hit somebody with a Ric Flair Wednesday, and it became a thing. That made people laugh. I was okay with that. Something for others, something for us. You're sharing your talents in a way that gives back. It's that agency. You're holding on to that thing What are the things that you can systematize and put on autopilot? And in today's world of AI, what are the things you can automate and take off your plate? And then what are the things that you can control, and what are the things you can invest in?
Investing in learning AI or attaching yourself to someone who can help you with agentic AI, agent AI, where it's doing those repetitive tasks for you. That's all agentic AI is. It's a system to help automate tasks. The 5 S's of housekeeping.
Okay.
Another Japanese concept: sort, straighten, scrub, sanitize, systematize. It's a recommended order to GSD to get stuff done that allows you to have a repeatable process. Sort, you've got things everywhere, overwhelmed with what to do. Just get the right things in the right room. Don't worry about putting them away. Don't worry about cleaning them. Just get the things in the right room. Use a basket. Straighten. Okay, now that everything's in the right room, find the place where you want to put it and straighten it up so that it's got a home. Scrub, really take a look at this item and invest in it, care for it, clean it so that you're demonstrating to yourself that you've made this investment. Sanitize means make sure that where you've placed this item is a place that it can stay for the future, not just for right now where it's going to be part of a pile, because a pile is nothing but an accumulation of avoided decisions.
A pile person, that hits me. That hurts. That hurts.
A pile driver. When you're talking about Ric Flair,
I'm looking at the piles on my desk and I'm like, ugh. Felt very convicted by that.
I'm guilty. I've got a pile just out of camera view here. When you sanitize, that 4th technique in the Japanese housekeeping concept, basically what you're saying is this a place where this thing can live permanently? And then systematize. And the reason systematize is last is figure out what works and then figure out how to repeat it over and over again so that it can serve you. We spend so much time figuring out how to tackle something or how to fix something or how to build something, but we don't build in the sustainability of how we're going to keep that and live off the returns of the investment. It doesn't matter what your system is. Find what works for you and find a way to repeat it so that it serves you in your future.
The recognition that there's seasons and it may change. You know, whether it's, hey, we're in budget season, and so maybe we need to change our system to support that new priority. We're going to reorganize our system to enable that priority, as opposed to just kind of hammering it in and making things uncomfortable and squidgy. They're your systems. They're designed for your success. And it's okay to say, you know what, maybe this month I'm going to use 1 basket. Next month, maybe I need 2 baskets. Maybe I'm in my basketless era. I don't know. Somehow that feels like a Taylor Swift record. But giving yourself the grace, a framework, and a system that enables you to feel in control. I think that would be my big takeaway for our listener. Create a system and a framework that enables you to feel like you have some level of control.
Using your agency to create a sense of control. That's what systems are. They're a form of controlling the movement so that you can operate in a somewhat predictable manner. There's so much that's unpredictable right now. Pick a few routines that really help you and try to find a way to make them repeatable. I'm grateful for this conversation. It makes me want to go organize my pile of paper that's in that box because it's getting up toward the handle where you'll be able to see it.
Well, Susan, I appreciate it as well. I want to thank our listener from Long Island. That was such a great question that I think most of us can relate to. And for the rest of our listeners tuning in, thank you. Please continue to dial in. Send us your topics if you have something you'd like us to discuss. And we'd love if you shared our show with others that you care about.
I will tell you this, Amelia and I would appreciate if you made part of your system a weekly routine of joining us for Imperfect, Better After Broken right here on Sandcastle Radio. This is Amelia, and I'm Susan Hendrich.
And I'm Jeff, and we look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. System of a Down. She's going down right now. God, of course she had to come up a second time. Was it too far?
I missed it.
It's it was such a hit.
Oh, perfect.
I had to hear it again.
Are you serious? Like, I'm like, think about it though.
It is just so normalizing that we're all just trying to make it.